Good morning, everyone. I'm Joanna. I actually was a university student here also. I graduated last year, but I have been out of uni for 2 years already. A little bit about what I'm going to be speaking today is that when people talk about security, the first thing in the general public, the first thing that would come up in their mind is something that has to do with this. And this is true. This is physical security, and they are part of what we call a security tribe, what we call in Spark. And if you lurk in Reddit or in the internet, then you would see security something like this. A man with 3 hands, 2 screens, and possibly a banana to energize himself or herself. But really, how we see security in Spark is like a huge round table of different skills, diverse way of thinking, analysts, coders, teachers, lawyers, writers, investigators, consultants, and network engineers. So, back in my thing, I'm Joanna Rubi. I was studying computer science here in Victoria University. I did dabble on network and software engineering. I hail from Newtown and Jayville, live now in Auckland. I am a longboarder, surfer, snowboarder, and a mom of 5 guinea pigs. So I was a security specialist turned DevOps engineer at Spark New Zealand. So the talk will be what's in a name. This is actually from Shakespeare, unraveling the different knights in the security round table. So what's in a name that which we call a security role by any other name would sound as sweet? When people talk about it, most of the things they think about defenders, attackers, red team, blue team. But there's a lot more to security than just that. So we'll be sharing some information about the roles within security, a name, a job title, but I'll be referencing mostly about my experience in the security tribe. So when I got into security, I had a really romanticized version of it. I really thought, yep, Mr. Robot, Snowden, Criminal Minds, screens everywhere and just black rooms. But in reality, it is actually that, and even more. There's free food and other things, and just really cool colleagues that you can work with. But it's also really interesting every day. Every day changes, and you always have to upskill. So the training grounds of how I actually got into the security role has been quite crazy. So when I was in university here, I did Summer of Tech, and I started as a web developer for TradeMe as an intern there, and eventually went around different companies. And I was really in that path of being a software engineer until someone told me about security, and I took Ian's paper, which I highly recommend because it's awesome, in security. And that's when I actually just flipped. And then I thought to myself, man, this is awesome, and this is something that's really, really crazy and intense to do. And it's fun, and you lose a lot of hair and possibly nosebleeds too. So this is the village of how I went around security, because I went to my job not really understanding what I wanted to do in security, because it's so broad and there's so many aspects to it. And these are the kind of teams that I actually went around to, and I was fortunate that I was accepted to these teams, because I had to pitch myself and tell them that I had enough skills to actually provide and help in their teams. So security clearance. This is something that's actually really important to understand. In Spark anyway, when you are actually applying for a job, and this was also mentioned before, we actually make sure that everyone has a clean slate in terms of criminal record investigation. So this team makes sure that people we employ are background checked. We look at your history, your family, your mom, your dad, and provide information in security training. So we train our staff to understand basic security concepts and understand good behaviors, and we review users with access to restricted areas and information. And then we do security awareness. This is a really important team also, so what we make sure is that everyone in our staff understand that when someone sends you an email saying, hey, I am Microsoft, put your username and password because you've forgotten your password, and then you see the sender is from at blah, 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 random, not Microsoft.com, then you would think, why? So these are the kind of behavior that we actually think, and we also run phishing simulations. One time at work, we actually ran a whole massive phishing attack to our users and did statistics on how many of our staff actually clicked, submitted, and did more stuff on that fake website. We can get stats on how well have we educated our staff internally. and to basically understand an effective way of actually mitigating that loss. We also do internal communications in this team. So when there are new attacks or new things that's happened around the business, then we communicate it to the wider area, because it's important that people in your business understand basic security concepts and also things that are happening around the country and around the world. So internal communications, and we also initiate internal strengthening programs. So multi-factor authentication, we help other teams kind of start that. And this is the team that I actually really had fun doing. So governance, risk, and compliance team. When people, usually in security, when we say something like this, a lot of people think it would be boring because it's a lot of paperwork. But what I did for this team, because I studied software, because I can code, and most of the people here are consultants, so they understand security concepts. And what they actually do is when there's a project in Spark or a project, what they do is they look at the project and really think, okay, how will attackers, infiltrate this project? Or how do we make sure that this project is secure when it gets to deploy? So they analyze risk in projects and organizing the business to meet standard security baselines. So the security risk assessment in Spark was actually, it's really good. So it's not manual anymore, it's a little bit automated, which was really, really cool. So that's one of the things I did for that team. I worked with a bunch of consultants, and we automated a little bit of the security risk assessment in Spark. So that's one of the teams that contributes to a security tribe. And then we have the group security, in which a bunch of people talk about as the incident responders, the red team penetration testers. And what they do is they do threat hunting and tuning intrusion detection systems rules in Spark. And so what they do is when there's a huge-ass problem, or that somebody tries to hack Spark or has gotten to the network, these are the people that will be called at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they smash out what to do. And we also have this thing called a war room, where we are inside a room and we can't leave until it is done. It is serious business. They provide water and food. I don't know about the toilet. And then this is also one of my favorite teams to do, and this is where I really got hands-on, really huge experience as a cybersecurity analyst. So what they do is focus on responding and managing security incidents. So in this team, we use we do DDoS mitigation when things are when we get DDoSed, tracking user and devices behavior. So when we talk about that, we also make sure that our users, especially with their email accounts, especially now that a lot of the when you're working for big companies, people can work from home, people can work from abroad, people work remotely. You know, understanding how we can make sure that things are still practically safe if they're not actually inside the parameter of our building in the office. And then we make sure phishing and malware analysis, when people get hacked through phishing in their emails, we get a lot of those too. And we do initial IDS alert investigation and mitigation. Because Spark offers security as a service, we have a lot of government clients, and we make sure that we're not only looking at internal, but also what we're offering to our customers and to our subsidiaries as well. And then the network engineer, I didn't do a lot in this team. I did a lot of scripting for their proxies, but they look after the firewall, application delivery, proxies, and provide network design for new projects. And then we have a Windows and Linux engineer. So if you're into Linux or Windows, then you have different teams that you can go in. And then usually they do server alerts and health checks on the servers and important devices that in our network. So security has a lot of teams, not just the red and blue. There's a lot of skills and different things that you can do inside security. This is my calling, guys. This is where I love and I live, using big data to better security posture. And we use Splunk for our SIEM. And what this team does is that we use data to basically predict analysis within our users, our network, our customers, and see before even things happen, how can we actually analyze these data so that we can mitigate them before it occurs? Or when stuff fails, how do we send an engineer to fix that before people start calling us? So a lot of data gets inputted from different places because Spark is the biggest telco in New Zealand. We get a lot of access to a lot of devices and a lot of things, and a lot of your data too, maybe. And then, so we use this big data as an analytics and predictive analysis. And this is the team that I'm currently at. I'm a DevOps engineer for one of our tools in Spark, implementing new tools or changing current ones that we actually use. So we build integrations across multiple platforms, create functionality in the tools, and all I do is code and code and code, which I really, really like. Because when I came on security, I really, really just liked coding, but I sucked. I actually am not the best student, and Ian can agree to this. So I wanted to talk about the dark ages of actually, before everything of this happened, how did I actually manage to get my foot in the door, and what did I actually do from me being in your position at the moment to actually being able to do what I'm doing now. So I haven't graduated for a very long time. This is very fresh in my mind. And I remember my university days, man, like I would sleep for 2 hours and then I would cry while I was sleeping in bed. So building a foundation, which I think is really, really key. Learning and understanding the importance of your passion and your network. Because when you get into security, it's not a 9-to-5 job. I think a lot of the things that we actually get out of work, we have to listen to podcasts, we have to read news, we have to always upskill ourselves because we have to be on par with all of these things that are happening in the world and to basically educate ourselves a lot. Because when we go through all these meetings and people talk about something and you have no idea, then it's a little bit like, oh, you gotta do your homework, mate. So this is the importance of passion, because passion will really drive you to actually get to where you are. I only took one security paper, and most of it actually in my security interviews and stuff, I learned through Reddit, I learned through reading news, listening to podcasts, and going through meetups and also conferences. OWASP was mind-blowing. I had no idea how good I was at handcuff picking, but I sucked at lock picking. So thank you, OWASP organizers, it was awesome. And then building a wall. So understanding theory versus theory and knowledge. So theory, a lot of it we can get from university, but like what I said, what's key and what can really get you to the future is really your own homework and where you actually do your own thing. Podcasts, news, Reddit, meetups, conferences. It's also really key on top of you going through your lectures and doing your assignments and going to labs. So don't be a slacker, because you make time for what you want to achieve. Nothing falls in your lap, no matter how smart you are. And I literally failed 2 papers in university. I have no idea how I got my job, mate. Building a fort. So a lot of it goes back to the Shakespearean theme that I'm kind of going through, is getting yourself out there in the hunt. So when you've gone through all the university, you've educated yourself, and then you've got the passion and the drive, going through conferences, it's really time for you to really get yourself out there and understanding the market. Okay, where you want to work, what do you want to do? Because security is really broad, right? Like whereabouts in security do you want to try? And actually, I really, really recommend graduate programs because they allow you to go around the business and also fail. So you don't have to always succeed. They are quite lenient, but they're always there to help you as well and support you through your learning. So some companies are really generous that they would pay for you to go to conferences internationally, or they would pay for your education to get certificates, which is also really, sometimes really important, but also, yeah. And then trying even if you don't meet the job requirements. This is really a big thing I always tell to people, because I only applied for the security role because people knew that I really like security. I already signed a contract with a different company. I was gonna be a software engineer, my mind was set, that was done. But then someone came up to me and said, hey, Joanna, you always talk about security, and I always see you like go into this conference, posting on Instagram. And then she told me to basically try and apply. I read the job requirements, I'm like, mate, I have no idea how to do half of this. I only know Java. I don't know half of the other things that they wanted me to do, and didn't even understand the jargon they were asking. But basically, I tried anyway, went to the interviews, And actually, what I learned from Ian's class got me through it. So that was really like, whoa. Yeah, and actually the craziest thing, I had my first interview in the toilet cubicle in an airport. So as long as you kind of are passionate and you have educated yourself on top of other things, then you might have, the necessary skills that you don't even know would actually allow you to move forward. So highly recommend trying even if you don't meet the job requirements, because you just never know where it's going to take you. And then learning through the experience, upskilling as you go. One of the things I actually really like doing when I'm really, really bored and have a lot of time is go to job interviews and apply for different roles. I'll actually go to job interviews even though I love my job and I'm okay with it. It's because the type of questions they ask me is really interesting, and also just to upskill myself. Okay, what are the questions they're asking me that I don't know how to answer? And how comfortable am I to answer some of the questions they're asking? But I only really do this when I'm bored, and usually it's like, never. But here and there I kind of do it, but only for fun and to understand what's really out there. So it's really, really important to just get out of the comfort zone and really just be brave and just do it. Like what Nike says. And soldiering on. You determine how you sharpen your skills, and your skills will determine how far you go. So a lot of the things that I actually noticed with what I've done, and also the other recent graduates that I've met through my experience, is really how I've seen the similarities, and all of what they do is just passion and doing their own homework outside of their daily task. So going the next step and actually just finding your own thing to do, because even though you're educated, you've got the certs, it takes more than that sometimes. But really, how passionate are you to actually go over and above to do what you want to do? And your current skills is your foot in the door. So right now, I'm assuming that most of you guys are studying in computer science, software, network. Like your current skills and like the next couple years that you're going to get, and the amount of knowledge you'll experience is actually going to be able to help you get your foot on the door. But like, I think Summer of Tech is really, really awesome to do just to get your foot on the door in the market. So mastery of the keyboard. No networking. I think this is key when getting into security, because you need to understand TCP, IP, blah, blah, blah. And build code and script. So those two are quite different, but learning how to code and learning how to script is really cool. And also understanding the way you think. How do you analyze things? How do you think? Because sometimes you have to think in-depthly, but also sometimes you just need to think common sense. Most of the things like, don't store your password on a piece of paper in a desk. That's common sense, right? You'd have like a password manager or something, and you don't leave your computer unattended in the public library while you go on buying lunch for 30 minutes. So just common sense things like that. And then, so what's in a name? To me, this is what I've defined security after being in the security industry. It's actually not about the hackers, and it's all about our users. A lot of the things I've noticed jumping through teams, gaining experience in this different variety of random things, is that most of the things we talk about, it's not about the attackers, not about the hackers. It's about how do we secure our users? How do we make sure the information is good? How do we make sure that our customers are happy, that they're not calling because they've been spammed or scammed like 100,000 New Zealand dollars? What solutions are we providing to them that we protect them? So instead of having the mindset of how do we stop the hackers, we have the mindset of how do we protect our users? And so we looked at user needs, our user behaviors, and create user-centric design. So this is why I really like the big data team, and I loved it, was because this was the main focus of what we were creating. And also our whole security tribe, the focus was to really create something, a solution for our users. And so, like what to get your arm on, update your LinkedIn. It's really important. A lot of recruiters actually go through LinkedIn and do your CV. Some security news resources that I've put that I actually really love and I think is really funny and also really informative, and subreddits that you guys can go through So just read when you're bored, on your train, and your bus. I think these resources are just really, really helpful to keep going and understanding in your dead time more security stuff. So, which role will you play in protecting the fort of Hamlet? Because security is really fun, exciting, challenging, it's constantly changing, constantly on the news, and it does big and real implication on lives of our users, on a business, and yourself too. So, be a good sheep. A wolf in sheep's clothing. I don't know if you read the spiel, but we're really trying to find wolves in sheep's clothing. It's an idiom of a Bible, but be a good human, really. But that's me. Thank you, everyone. Yep. Does anyone have any questions?